Hello everybody, Sunday Adelaja here. I want to continue the teaching that we have been doing over the weeks. Are Black African people cursed is the subject. Are Black African people cursed? Are Africans cursed? Is there anything wrong with the black race? No, nothing is wrong, absolutely. Rather, the black race is a pride of civilization, is a blessing to all civilization. And that's what we are going to keep on proving today by talking about the topic that I'm talking about today, the African origins of India. So we're going to tell you how black people have been a blessing to India and how Africans gave birth to the Indian civilization. So go and share the message, everyone. Share the message with your friends and family members. And here we start. Exceptionally valuable records expressing close connections between India, ancient Egypt, and Ethiopia have existed for more than 2,000 years. So for more than 2,000 years, there have been records that, yes, there is a connection between the Ethiopian civilization, Egyptian civilization, and Indian civilization. And we know the way it is. Every life started in Nubia, in Africa, in Ethiopian Empire, and then from there, the people migrated to Egypt, and from there to the Mediterranean, and then from there to India, to Asia, and to all parts of the world. So, in the 4th century BC, for example, Greek historian Diodorus, that we have always been talking about, of Sicily, wrote that from Ethiopia, so these are not black people who wrote this. This is not written by black people. This is not today it was written. This was written before Christ. So this is historical document that could only be reliable. You cannot go back to it and rewrite it. So this was written even before the birth of Christ, okay? So what did he write? He wrote that from Ethiopia, Osiris passed through Arabia on the border with the Red Sea and reached as far as India. So Ethiopia Osiris, Ethiopian blacks, they are the ones who populated not just Africa. They went from Ethiopia. Ethiopia is not the Ethiopia that we are talking about today. Not today's Ethiopia. We are talking about the ancient Ethiopia, which comprises of most countries of Africa. So they went from Africa, went to Arabia, that is the Mediterranean area, then on the border with the Red Sea, and reached as far as India. So the black people went and populated India. They built many cities in India, one of which he called Nisa. As black people, he wished to have a memory of the Egyptian city Nisa, where he has been brought up. Earlier historians and geographers called all area from India to Egypt, including both countries, Ethiopia, you say. So Egypt was part of Ethiopia at that time, including India. India was regarded as Ethiopia at the point. It was part of Ethiopia. It was part of African. And the reason they called India, Egypt, Ethiopia is because they were all dark-skinned people. So you see, all dark-skinned and black people of this region were called Ethiopians. That's interesting for you to know. So Indians used to be Africans, and Ethiopians means African because African is just a new name, much later. But before, African people used to be called Ethiopians and Cushites. So all dark-skinned and black people of the region were called Ethiopians. At the same time, they were divided into Eastern Ethiopians or Asians and Western Ethiopians, who are the Africans. So that's the division that happened. The Asians were called Eastern Ethiopians or Eastern Africans, and the Africans were called Ethiopians, Western Ethiopians. So these are the drawings from that period. Okay, this is India, right? This is no, Asia. This is not just India. This is different. These are all different countries of Asia. And you could see that they are black. I think these are Malaysians. Malaysians and Filipinos. So the first inhabitants of Asia were black. So these are all over Asia. The people who lived there were black people. Okay. The first inhabitants of Asia were black, you see. Yep. You see, these are black people here. Professor Thomas Henry Huxley believed that one could trace Egyptians and Indian Dravidians to a belt that in ancient times spread from India to Spain, that is Europe, right, was inhabited by dark brown people, like myself, dark brown people. So Africans ruled over all those belts of India, Spain, and Egypt, Ethiopia, all that. Although nowadays people of every shade and color live in India, ancient inhabitants of India were black, you see. Their descendants still live in central India till today. So the people who lived in India before, ancient Indians, were black. They have negroid features, dark skin, thick and frizzy hair, just like mine. Professor Lynn Thorndike, an American historian, describes ancient Indians as short, black people with almost negroid noses. See. The American historian William James Durant depicts these early Hindus as follows. Dark-skinned, with broad noses, my nose, who we call Dravidians, not knowing the origin of this word. They look at them, look at the Indians here. The Indian women, the Indian men, this Sir Arjun Singh, Raja or Prince of Narshigar in central India. He was appointed as a prince or as Raja at only 10 years of age, gaining full ruling powers from the government of India in 1909. So these are the, some of them are still like this. They're still looking like this in India up to now. Okay, look at this one too. So some people, so in this article is written, are these two from West Africa? Because people are used to seeing West Africans look like this, or East Africans. Actually, these folk dancers belong to the Aboriginal Gong people of India. They are descendants of Indians' first settlers, you see. They are descendants of Indians' first settlers. India has the largest black population outside of Africa. Imagine what else you have been told. So the first inhabitants of India are black people, and they are still there up to today. So historical black India. The first great civilization of India were founded by these Asian Ethiopians in the Indus Valley. They built large cities, the main of which were Mohenjo-daro, Shanghu-daro, and Harappa. Now it could be occurring into somebody's mind right now that, okay, if black people were the origin of all these things, what happened to the black race? Well, like I said in my previous teaching, it is the evolving of history, and history goes around in circles. The first shall be last, as Jesus said. The first shall be last. We are first and we are last now, but again, the last shall be first. And besides that, the reason why we lost that dominance and that rulership over the earth was because we were worshipping idols. Idol worshipping is what actually brought Africa and African people backward. So now that most of us have come to know the living God, you will see that the turn of history will bring Africans back to a place of prominence and leadership. Virtually the first public toilets known to archaeologists as well as urban sewage system were found in Mohenjo-daro by black people. The black people constructed the first public toilet, and that is the Mohenjo-daro Empire at that time. There is it. Built by black civilization of India. Dishes and household utensils bore traces of standardization. In addition, numerous weights for scales and embossed stamps were found, indicating standardization and centralized control in trade sphere. Many buildings in the lower city, where apparently wealthy citizens lived, had spacious courtyards and brick stairs, presumably led either to the second floor of the house or to a flat roof adapted for residence. Walls were covered with plaster to prevent impact of moist air or temperature changes in the brick. We are talking about this construction, this building. These are some of the most iconic buildings of India. The elaborately constructed and carved Rani Ki valve, also known as the Queen's Stepwell. Can you imagine the complexity of this building? And this was all built by the civilization. You see, they found it under the ground. You see, the top of that building is the land, where people live now. But under the land is where they found this. They even invented the process of making stainless iron. There is still an iron column in Delhi, India, that bears not a single trace of rust. Archaeologist Walter Fairservice states that the Harappan civilization cultivated cotton and tamed chickens. Apollonius of Tana, who, according to some evidence, visited India around the 1st century AD, and Christian writer Eusebius of Caesarea, who is considered to be the father of church history, also pointed out presence of Ethiopians in India. In the work The Journey of Alexander, which was written for Roman Emperor Constantius II, India was regarded as a continuation of Egypt and Ethiopia. Amazing. Among others, there are the following evidences that people of the Harappan civilization were black. We have the remains of skeletons. We have eyewitness accounts which are presented in the Rigveda, the first known India literary monument. We have art and sculpture remains that prove the black origin of India. We have the remains of skeletons that prove the black origin of India. We have written eyewitness account that proves the black origin of India. The fact that Dravidian languages are preserved in this region, in particular among the Brahui, the Aryan, and the Maltese nations, a significant role of these languages, which are now used to decipher Harappan manuscripts, an outstanding position given to the mother goddess in Harappan cities. The Dravidians, Sudanese, and Dravidian Ethiopians, Indians. So we have these same people we see in India, we see them in Africa, we see them in Ethiopia and Sudan, the same nationality, the same language. So how did they go there from Africa to India? Because that is the story. That's what we're saying, that they are the same people that migrated over there. Africa extended into what is now called India. The Dravidians, or original people sometimes referred to as Dalits, are Ethiopians and Africans. The term Dalits means bound, and the name may have been given to them by those who enslaved them and put them in a racist caste system at the lowest level. The Dalits or Dravidians were the indigenous peoples of India, or the Eastern Ethiopians or Eastern Africans. Dravidians are descendants of the Harappan civilization people that were driven out of the Indus Valley to the south of India as a result of Aryan invasions. This corresponds with Dravidian legends, according to which prosperous cities were either ruined or destroyed in ancient times. So this is how they look today. Dalits or Dravidians. This is how they look today. There is both an ethnic group of Dravidians and a group of Dravidian languages, here of straight or wavy texture combined with African physical features is one of the characteristics of this ethnic group. More than 100 million people speak Dravidian languages, mainly in southern India. These include Tamil. It is spoken most of all by the people of this group. Kannada, Malayalam, Telugu, Tula are the other people who speak the language. Dalits or Dravidians of Indus Valley. This is the way they look. At least in the 3rd century AD, there were 3 Dravidian kingdoms in southern India, namely Pandya, Chera, and Cholas. And these are their empire, these are the remains from that empire here. There was a city of Madurai in the kingdom of Pandya, and in Madurai there was Sangam Academy. Look at it here. Amazing construction, huh? Unbelievable. Sangam Academy, Madurai. Look at it. Madurai, Pandya Kingdom. It was established by 48 extremely educated scientists who set standards for all literary works without exception. Pandya's rulers honored them. Also, women held a high position in this kingdom. This was exactly the opposite to those regions of India where bright white people ruled, or barely white-skinned people ruled. It is believed that in those areas where Aryans ruled, a woman never became independent. According to the legend, as a child, she belonged to her father. But where the women are ruling is the same culture as in Sudan or as in Nubia and ancient Ethiopia, where women were the rulers. When grown up and married, she belonged to her husband. If she outlived her husband, she belonged to her sons. This is in the other part of India that are not blacks. At the same time, an ancient queen of Pandya, for example, ruled an army with 500 elephants. So this is the place where there are black people. They allow the women to be the rulers. 4,000 cavalry units and 13,000 infantrymen. More details on the differences between the two polar civilizations will be given later. It is believed that the kingdom of Chola is the place where the Apostle Thomas is buried. When visiting Pandya, Marco Polo spoke of Chola that it was the best and the most perfect area of all India. Dravidians were very progressive sailors, and Chola became one of the predominant sea nations of the world of the whole era. Through its ports, kings of Chola traded with Ethiopia and Somalia, Iran and Arabia, Cambodia and China, Samudra and Sri Lanka, exporting spices and camphor, ebony, wood and ivory, high-quality fabrics and precious stones. The Dravidian kingdoms and Dravidians were well known in international arena. So when Octavian Augustus, 14th century before, 63rd century before Christ, headed the Roman Empire, the Dravidian kingdom sent a delegation to congratulate him. This is the Dravidian architecture here. According to Dravidian poets, Roman ships brought archers-bodyguards to fight pirates, and Dravidian kings hired Roman soldiers to join the bodyguards. In 1288 and 1293, Italian traveler Marco Polo visited the kingdom of Pandya. According to his descriptions, a person with the darkest skin was valued above all there and was considered to be better than the others who are not so dark. Now it's the opposite, right? Now dark-skinned people are being despised. They portrayed their gods and idols as black and demons as white, as snow, claiming that God and all saints had black skin and demons had white. One of the most famous Africans in India was Malik Amba, born in Ethiopia. Like a number of other Africans in medieval India, he rose to a position of great influence. He formed a huge army, was an excellent diplomat and administrator, becoming the prime minister of the Ahmadnagar Sultanate. And this is the person here. He stimulated production and built mosques, a system of canals for urban water supply, funded the city of Aurangabad. He initiated issuance of pensions to scientists and poets, established postal service, becoming one of the most famous people in India. Today in Southern Asia, there is a racial ethnic group, Sidi or Absi, which is African by origin and predominantly Negroid. Look at the way they are. It was formed in the 18th, 19th century as a result of Indians' traditional trade ties with, 9th century, not 19th, 8th to 9th century. Indian traditional trade ties with Ethiopia and the Middle East, Arab conquest in the north of the region, and subsequent Arab and Portuguese slave trade. Previously, they were called Sayyids, that is, descendants of the Prophet Muhammad. The term Absi comes from the Arabic name of Ethiopia. Sidi played a big role in the Deccan Wars between the Indian Maratha nation and the Mughal Empire, which was located on the territory of India. These are the racial ethnic group of Sidi or Apsi. Wow. Beautiful people, but totally African. A famous Berber traveler, Ibn Battuta describes Sidi as guarantors of security in the Indian Ocean. If at least one of them is on a ship, Indian pirates and idolaters will not approach the ship. Thus, we were able to see the influence of black people on civilization in the Indus Valley. Wow, what a history, what an eye-opening journey. And I'm going to still show you a video that will prove this further. It's better to see sometimes. But before then, I want to encourage you to go share this message. Share. Go share the message with your friends and family members. Let's spread the word. And if you want to join my mentorship class, it is on the internet. Go to my blog, sundayadelajablog.com/mentorship. If you want to go to Africa with us, go to sundayadelajablog.com also /Nigeria. If you want to come and attend the History Makers training with us, then go to sundayadelajablog.com as well, only this time /HMT. So if you want to buy my books, the same thing, sundayadelajablog.com/books. But you could also read my books for free on Kindle Unlimited if you go to Amazon or buy them on Amazon. And yeah, so let's go and see the video. Let's go and see the video right now, and from there you'll be able to get a better picture of the African origins in India. Okay.
African Adam and Eve, per empty DNA, are the first modern-like humans to migrate out of Africa. They include the various types of black peoples: black Australoids, black Pygmoids, and black Negroids. Enter Europe, Asia, Siberia, Australia, Melanesia, and the Americas. Then you Indians, or you so-called Indians, come and tell me that Australoids have nothing to do with Africans when we come from the same first modern human-like family.
These maps of the Omo Valley region, the oldest modern humans, 195,000 years old, coming up out of this region, as I said, migrating around the world from the early documentation that we see here today.
The Japan Times, May 12, 2001. You read again. DNA evidence backs up out of Africa human origin theory. DNA-based evidence for early migrations into India. So you see, there's DNA-based evidence that the first Indians, the first people to come into India and Asia, were Africans. The Negroid or Negrito people of prehistoric India were the first human inhabitants. Again, it says the Negritos were supplemented by later immigrants, the Proto-Australoids. Another black race, another part of the black race, another part of Africans.
So going back to the history, what is the connection between India and Africa? So I'm trying to bridge the gap. There is a distinct and clear connection between the ancient India and the ancient Africa. And that is where I want to go back to the Indus Valley civilization. I think most of you would have heard that, or maybe would have studied in school, which is as ancient as the Egypt and Nile Valley civilization. The original inhabitants or the original creators of the Indus Valley civilization, which is also called Mohenjo-daro and Harappa or Harappan civilization, was created by the black man. People came from Africa. About 7,000 BC, which is 9,000 years back, maybe even earlier than that. They brought agriculture, they domesticated most of the animals, they were highly civilized, they had two-story buildings, sanitation systems, sewage system, they had a built-in screening system in the sewage so the solids would not block the liquid passage. They had chutes so they can drop the garbage from the upper level to lower levels. They had individual wells. They had courtyards. Highly civilized conditions they were living. They're very peaceful agricultural people. Very well flourishing civilization. This is the original black people.
They were an African group who had left Egypt, Sudan and Ethiopia, the Nile Valley. They went there with Thutmosis III, and before Thutmosis III, with other conquering people. They remain in India today, remnants of their families. They are called Dravidians, Tamils, and other such names, including untouchables. Those people, religion, and then they took on the name, by the way, Elamite. E-L-A-M, Elam, was what was Ur, Chaldea, became Ur Elam. In other words, as the Africans conquered that land, on their way all the way to India as conquerors, they changed the name of the land of Chaldea to the name of Elam, E-L-A-M.
India used to be called, long time ago, Eastern Ethiopia.
The cradle of African civilization by the way of Ethiopia was Central Africa. Ethiopia was Central Africa. Relying on classical authors, Hansberry began in his lectures to outline the antiquity of the classical world's intimacy with Ethiopia. His basic argument was that there was clearly contact and interaction between Ethiopians and the people of the Eastern Mediterranean basin hundreds of years prior to the first notations and the earliest use of the term Ethiopian by Homer in the 9th century BC. Clearly an important part of the populations of Arabia, Mesopotamia, Persia and India were of Ethiopian descent. This conclusion was further substantiated by Herodotus' comments concerning the Eastern Ethiopian.
As I said, the worship there was the worship of goddess Heru, or otherwise Hathor, who was symbolized as an African woman with the ears of a cow, or shown as a cow. For those of you who have been to Egypt, at Abu Simbel, you saw her shown in the temple of Nefertari. You saw her at the funerary temple of Makari Hatshepsut, at the Valley of the King. You saw her in Dendera, in the temple built to honor Hathor. You saw her the most expressed. And you saw her in many other temples throughout Egypt, because in every temple there's got to be at least one reference to goddess Hathor, or Heru. That African woman, or goddess, was worshipped by every people who had contact with the Africans of ancient times before the Common Era.
And the best known of the goddess was the goddess Hathor. And that her influence was so great that it spread to Asia, and the concept of the sacred cow in India came from an aspect of the religion of Hathor. And when you see her drawn in history, you will see a female with a cow's body. It was the sacredness of this image that gave them the concept of the sacredness of the cow. And that this is part of the Hindu religion. This is part of where the sacred cow concept came.
The worship of the golden calf that is in India. It comes from the worship of Heru that was taken into India by Asar and the Nile Valley Africans, the Ethiopians, that moved into that realm and started the Indian Kushite, Hindu Kushite civilization. This BBC documentary tells us about the great dwarf deities of Egypt, Bes and Ptah. Here is two deities, the two earliest deities of Egypt, Ptah and Bes.
Now, you can even see Bes, which is a Twa, the lion was sacred to Bes. Now, if that's in India, that's, I think, what's that deity's name? I think it might be Calendar. Okay. Now, you see the lion right there now. See, that's the symbolism of Bes. You got to understand that's Bes. How did it get in India? How did it get into India? So how can he say Asia or anything in Africa when we can clearly show we took it there?
Now this is an image of Osiris, Asar, that is in the Louvre Museum. Look at this face. It is truly African. Reading from Diodorus Siculus, Greek historian of 1st century BCE, he states, Osiris being coming to the borders of Ethiopia, raised high banks on either side of the river, lest in the time of his inundation it should overflow the country more than was convenient, and make it marshy and boggy, and made floodgates to let in the water by degrees as far as was necessary. Thence he passed through Arabia, bordering upon the Red Sea as far as to India, and the utmost coasts that were inhabited. He built likewise many cities in India, one of which he called Naza, willing to have a remembrance of that in Egypt where he was brought up. Here is the documentation from the 1st century BCE, where the Greek historian is relating to us the information of this black god, Asar, who had educated even the Indian. And that god Asar became Krishna in the Indian realm. And you see that the Indians paint themselves black to remember the great god Asar. Krishna means black in Sanskrit. It means black. And this is where the Ethiopians who created the Hindu Kush civilization in that area came from, up out of the Nile. So we have to understand that all of these civilizations are given birth to by the Nile Valley Africans.